I'm the director for the CREATE Center in Renewable Energy Advanced Technological Education. And we're pleased to host the webinar today with the Solar Foundation and the Solar Training Network. Our presenter today is going to be Megan Howes. I can actually tell you that I met Megan a little over a year ago at a Solar Energy Industry Association meeting in Denver, Colorado. And at the time, they were hosting a panel based on their work with workforce development for the solar industry. And when I attended their session, I knew right away this would be something of interest to the CREATE network. So we coordinated with Megan to get her and her team to put together today's presentation. A few notes before we get started. We will be recording this presentation, and both the recording and the slides will be available for download afterwards on the CREATE website. We will ask the participants, if you have questions, to hold your questions till the end of the presentation. And if you're worried that you might forget what your question might be, feel welcome to type it in the chat box. The chat tool is down at the bottom of the screen, and I'll kind of monitor that chat box and then try and consolidate the questions for our presenter at the end of the presentation. So without any further delay, I should also mention one other thing. If you are on a phone connection or a microphone connection, if you can mute your microphone connection while listening to the presentation, that'll hopefully prevent having any funny echoes or feedback on the line. So without any further delay, I will turn things over to Megan and let her introduce herself and the Solar Training Network in a little bit more detail. Megan, take it away.
All right, so thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Ken, for that introduction, and also thanks to Gabby Temple for coordinating and hosting this webinar. So as Ken said, I'm the program coordinator at the Solar Foundation, and as you all know, today we're going to be discussing a program that I help to manage called the Solar Training Network. This webinar, like Ken said, will be recorded and posted on our website next week, so please feel free to share it around your networks afterwards if you find this helpful. And it seems like we have a good mix of different folks on here today, so I'll do my best to cover aspects of our program that are most pertinent to everyone, but some of the things that we'll get into are more geared towards employers and some are more for students. So there's going to be a good mix of a lot of different information packed into this session. So I tried to organize these slides based on the structure of our online platform, which some of you have seen, around 3 big themes that we focus our program and projects around. See if we can get these slides to move. There we go. Okay. So jumping right in, the Solar Training Network is a national solar workforce development program that essentially facilitates career connections and supports partnerships across the solar industry. We're funded through a grant from the U.S. Department of Energy Solar Energy Technologies Office, which some of you might remember as Sunshot, with approximately $2 million in funding over 3 years. And we started out in 2016, so we're now reaching the end of our funding period. So as our presentation today, we'll walk through the major milestones and outcomes of the program and how we've created the infrastructure to support the long-term impact and sustainability of the program. We operate first and foremost to support the solar community. This includes industry, of course, and also educators and those organizations and individuals providing solar training, workforce development organizations and trade associations, and everyone pursuing or advancing their careers in the field. So today I'm just going to run through the highlights of some of our research and the industry challenges that we've identified, and explore the growing set of resources that we've created to address those needs, including a quick tour of our brand new solar career platform. So it looks like we had a little bit of a formatting issue with the slides getting them uploaded here, so I apologize and just bear with us. I know that research has an H on there. It looks like it's hiding. So this webinar will, of course, focus on Solar Training Network, but first we should zoom out for a minute and set a little bit of context. So Solar Training Network is led and administered by the Solar Foundation, And this is a national, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization focused on research and education related to advancing solar deployment across the U.S. So the Solar Foundation has emerged as a widely regarded industry leader, and among other technical assistance and collaborative endeavors is best known for the annual National Solar Jobs Census. And this work really informs Solar Training Network's projects, so it's worth taking a look at real quick. So the census is a really robust, comprehensive dive into the geographic and market trends across the solar jobs landscape and provides an impartial rundown of where jobs are growing and in what sectors across residential and commercial and utility scales, ultimately to support informed decision-making by companies and by policymakers. This work has been done every year since 2010 and demonstrates trends over time, primarily in job creation. It also looks at other interesting data points, such as representation of women and minorities and veterans in each state's workforce, or the number of K-12 schools going solar, things like that. And this is what the map of total solar jobs looked like 3 years ago in 2015, when California, Massachusetts, New York were the leading markets. And you can see changes each year. There we go. This is 2016, there's 2017. A lot of the shifts in job numbers can be attributed to state level policies like consumer incentives or major utility projects cropping up. The census also looks at much finer scales down to the level of congressional district and county, so that decision makers can understand the impact of solar on their local economies and their constituents and the potential for growth. So as you can see, the solar industry has undergone a decade of pretty rapid expansion, and solar installation is actually the fastest growing job in the US right now, with over 250,000 Americans and currently. The majority of these roles tend to be concentrated in installation, but there are sizable employment numbers across other sectors like manufacturing, sales and distribution, and project development as well. Solar Foundation team collects this data through surveys of companies all across the country, and our team is in the field right now collecting data for the 2018 report. So any and all employers on the call today should make your solar jobs count and take a minute later on to fill out our survey and help us get an accurate read of where the solar jobs market is headed next year. There we go. Okay. So this leads us back to Solar Training Network. The mission of this program, broadly speaking, is to meet the workforce needs of the rapidly expanding solar industry to support a better qualified and more diverse and better connected and job-ready solar workforce to fill those new positions. So this program was created out of the need to bridge gaps and strengthen channels of communication within and adjacent to the industry. And we accomplish this through a few different avenues related to stakeholder engagement and information sharing. So we publish original research, we create tools and resources to help the industry understand the data and implement action plans, and we facilitate connections among stakeholders for stronger partnerships and stronger talent pipelines. These are just a few examples of Solar Training Network in the field. So we put on industry and public-facing events all around the country, ranging from solar career fairs to workforce strategy commission meetings, to panel discussions and conference presentations and employer trainer summits, like the one that Ken attended that he mentioned at the beginning, to kickstart conversations and encourage partnerships at regional scales. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit now and take a tour of the new Solar Training Network online platform. So some folks might remember our old website that was created at the launch of our program a few years ago, but over the past couple months, we've completely overhauled the site and relaunched the platform to provide a greater range of functionality and a much improved user experience. So with our new site, we're really excited about a solar industry-specific job board, which is provided as one solution to the immediate need for improved solar hiring. And other features such as Workforce Development Resource Center and the Workforce Partner Directory, which we'll get to later, are meant to encourage regional capacity building for long-term industry stability and growth. So our team is pretty excited about how this turned out. We believe that this offers a really valuable and unique tool for the industry that will only get better as the network grows and as more folks join the conversation and put these tools to good use. This platform is free for everyone to use. It's open to anyone who's involved in solar training and hiring. So I sincerely hope that everyone on the call today will take the time to join the network as a job seeker or as an instructor or employer or workforce partner, whatever your role might be in the industry, to keep the conversation going and share this resource with your students and with your colleagues. Is it stuck again? Okay. So the job board, like I mentioned, this is designed to make the solar job search more streamlined and to make it easier for employers to identify the right candidates for jobs. So employers can create a company profile and manage postings and manage applications through a dashboard where you can have everything all in one place. And for job seekers, a profile gives you the space to showcase skills and experience and identify employment opportunities that are geolocated onto this really cool interactive map. One question that we receive pretty frequently that I just want to make sure is clear before we get too far. We don't offer training ourselves, and we also don't do job placement, but we help individuals to identify opportunities for training and for employment, and this job board is one key piece of how we accomplish that. Oops. Okay. So this is what a complete candidate profile looks like to an employer. So if you're logged in as an employer, this is what you would see. So there's a place for a headshot. There's a space to list out current and past work experience, education background, or any relevant credentials. There's a space for self-reporting on skills and competencies, things like that. It's a little bit like LinkedIn, but just for the solar industry and, of course, scaled way back. But employers have the ability to filter candidates by skill or by location and can save favorite resumes and reach out to potential hires directly through the site. So for any students and job seekers that are joining us on this call, I just want to take a minute to emphasize that complete profiles, including a photo and a resume, will receive significantly more attention from employers who are looking for candidates for open jobs. So please take the time to use all fields and make the case for why you'll be a great hire to get the most out of this resource. It's really easy to create a profile. It takes just a few minutes. We built in LinkedIn API keys to make logging in even easier, so we can pull your information right over from LinkedIn into our site, so you don't have to retype everything. And so any instructors and training providers who are joining us today, we would highly encourage you to share this resource with your students and alumni to make sure that they're aware of this opportunity too. Okay, so on the other side, this is what an employer page looks like to a job seeker. Companies can share general information like mission statement, outline of what they do, photos of projects. You can list multiple locations if like you have a head office and then other branch locations. And employers are searchable to candidates by location and by job category and keywords. So things like installation, manufacturing, engineering, nonprofit sector, things like that. This is one example of what a job posting looks like on our site. So Select Energy is apparently hiring a business development director, and you can see where the job is located. You can read about functions and requirements. You can save the job to your favorites list and then apply directly through our site where your application lands in that employer's dashboard and they receive an email notification to go in and review your resume. We also curate other jobs that might interest you depending on your search and the filters that you choose. It's a pretty standard job board, so I won't get too much into how it works, but it's the only one we're aware of that focuses solely on opportunities in solar. Okay, so tools and resources. So that was our job board. And addressing solar workforce challenges in a meaningful way goes beyond just hiring, and our site is so much more than just a job board. So this platform supports a better qualified and job-ready solar workforce by making it easier for all stakeholders, but particularly for employers, to start conversations and establish partnerships at regional scales. So especially as we're nearing the end of our funding period and considering our program sustainability plans, we're thinking about ways to build capacity and lay the groundwork for lasting impact. So by providing not just information, but also context and guidance, we hope to broaden understanding of where the industry is right now, the challenges to growth, and empower industry members to find really collaborative solutions. So to that end, our new site hosts a library of original and affiliate tools and resources. These are all downloadable online. If you click into our Research and Resources tab in the header on our website, you'll find all of these and lots more. And each of these could easily be its own hour-long conversation, but I'm just going to run through and give the abridged, like, Cliff Notes version of each one and highlight some general themes and key points. So Solar Training and Hiring Insights, this was our first major publication. It came out last year and explores the workforce challenges that have come up given how fast the industry is growing, and outlines the business case for investment in work-based learning. So one of our former team members who laid the groundwork for this program put a lot of effort into collecting really robust data that helps trainers and job seekers better understand solar employer preferences and general trends and how the industry is shaping up. So the report aggregates surveys of over 400 installation firms around the country and includes in-depth case studies of the 10 companies who account for a majority of solar hiring. It's important to point out and just keep in mind that this data is for entry-level installation jobs, since that's the most common, we like to call it on-ramps into the industry, and where most of the workforce challenges are concentrated, but the themes that emerge do tend to be more broadly applicable as well. So one of the most important takeaways of this research is that the majority, like around 85% of solar employers, continue to experience difficulty finding and retaining qualified candidates despite relatively low education and experience requirements for landing entry-level jobs. These numbers on here represent the national average, and it's important to keep in mind that every state market is different and changing all the time. So for example, like California or Massachusetts, the more well-established markets tend to have a little stronger hiring preference than a more nascent and faster growing region like Illinois or Texas. The other key piece of this report is that most solar employers feel that insufficient job placement services exist for the solar industry that are available in adjacent but more established industries like construction and electrical work. So we'll come back to this point, but it underscores the need for an industry-wide conversation about workforce development strategies and just generally greater standardization. This report also looks at how on-the-job training immediately after hire affects labor costs. So this line graph represents the investment in onboarding training and cost of labor per kilowatt installed. And these three data points on here represent the three largest installation firms in the US, which I won't name here, but you can probably imagine who those might be. And Solar Training Network was actually designed to target the DOE's goal of reducing soft costs of solar. So all those things aside from the hardware itself that factor into the cost of a project. So installation accounts for more than 10% of this, and we found that if improved training could lead to just a 1% decrease in callbacks related to improper installation, it could save the industry more than $10 million in less than a year. So beyond the significant business case to be made for quality training, investment in talent development also lends itself to retaining quality employees, since people who are trained to do their job well and trained to advance within a company tend to stick around longer. So that's all to say that industry investment in quality training, like ideally a combination of on-the-job training and other forms of work-based learning prior to hire, like internships, are a key component of supporting a stronger workforce that can more confidently and immediately meet an employer's needs. Okay, so that brings us to our toolkit. We all know that accelerated industry expansion has nearly tripled U.S. solar employment in the past decade or so, and that recruiting and retaining qualified workers remains a priority and a challenge. So our industry toolkit, which was published in July of this year, is basically our 90-page answer to the information gaps and challenges that were identified by the Training and Hiring Insights report that we just looked at. So this document draws on 2 years of conversations with employers and trainers and industry associates and community organizations in solar markets all around the country. And workforce development fundamentally needs to be led by the industry. So this resource is intended primarily to give employers the tools that they need to take ownership of the process. So rather than providing an exhaustive list of solutions, this toolkit outlines actionable and collaborative steps for engaging training providers and engaging other partners to define objectives that are informed by and adaptive to local dynamics and local needs. This was actually originally supposed to be 2 separate documents focused on the public workforce development system and on the work-based learning. But the more we tried to tease these 2 things apart, the more we realized that these themes are really mutually reinforcing. So we ended up with a part 1 and part 2. They're all kind of tied together. And collectively, these address a few major ideas along the lines of improving communication among regional networks, then integrating solar careers into the existing public workforce development system, and investing in the skills of the current and future workforce. So each section is illustrated by real-world case studies and includes templated action plans and implementation guides to help put these ideas into practice. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the first half, like I said, focuses entirely on the various aspects of workforce development, which really can be thought of as both a system and a process. So workforce development can refer to all stakeholders of a given industry coming together around common labor challenges and coming together for shared solutions. And by extension, the workforce development system is a collection of private and public partners that address the needs of businesses at a local or regional scale and steer talent development and retention based on local labor market trends. So this toolkit defines low-cost opportunities for employers to streamline training and hiring practices and increase public awareness of opportunities in the industry to people who might not necessarily be aware. It suggests ways for employers to engage with the public education system to reach near-future job seekers, such as bringing solar to K-12 science curriculums and high school career development. And it also lays out ways for employers to engage with career and technical education and reach out to adjacent industries like electrical and construction trades to reach a wider pool of talent that have really valuable transferable skills that might not otherwise be specifically looking for solar opportunities. The other major piece of this, there are a lot of public resources like financial and business support services that the solar industry really has not been taking advantage of in a meaningful way. So this first half summarizes key points on how to more effectively access these. And this is particularly valuable for smaller companies who may not have dedicated HR staff and who may not be aware that by building relationships with workforce development boards in their community and agencies like American Job Centers, companies can receive fairly substantial support for the recruitment and hiring process. Like, for example, writing and sharing job descriptions to make sure that you're reaching the right people, or pre-screening candidates for you before the interview process to make sure that you're getting the people you're looking for. And also, not many solar employers are aware that there are public funds available for training initiatives through federal and state legislation. The most prominent one is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. So in this first section, we outline how these funds are allocated and why it's so important to communicate the need for increased quality solar training to get solar on the radar of the people who make those decisions. And then, like I promised, the second half is all about work-based learning. So despite the level of mechanical aptitude and technical competencies that are really necessary to be successful in a lot of jobs in this field, work-based learning in solar is still not as widely accessible or as prevalent as it is in other similar industries. And so in the second half, we explore key considerations for employers to overcome real or sometimes just perceived challenges to implementing hands-on education programs. So work-based learning refers to any kind of practical, non-classroom-based education, ranging from informal short-term engagements like job shadowing for high school students to much more structured formal programs like apprenticeships, or even in some cases upskilling incumbent workers. And each of these is designed to meet a particular set of objectives within a given time frame. So work-based learning ensures that students can practice and refine technical and problem-solving skills with guidance from a mentor, and at the end of the day, making for a more confident and a better qualified employee. So this part of the toolkit has things like a flow chart to determine what kind of work-based learning is right for your organization's particular goals, and offers other program planning resources and guidance such as labor regulations and how to partner with local training providers to make sure that you're bringing on trainees with the right interests and the right goals to make the experience worthwhile and valuable for everyone who's involved. Okay, so one of my personal favorite new resources is a page called the Solar Panel. It's not quite a panel per se, it's more of a written Q&A, but the pun was too good to pass up. So we brought together a bunch of Solar Training Network members in different regional markets to discuss workforce challenges and to provide real-world insights. So each one of our panelists, including Ken at Create, who's hosting this webinar, offered really great insights, and there are a lot of good, cost-effective, and replicable steps and solutions that are being implemented across the country. So what you see here on this slide is just one little piece of the panel. There are lots of other questions, and each one has multiple answers and different perspectives and different recommendations that you can click through. We're hoping to keep adding on to and expanding this in the future. So as the industry grows and evolves, this conversation will continue to take shape. And we put such an emphasis on information sharing and communicating best practices to make it as straightforward as possible to leverage this information and to give ownership of the process and of solutions to those stakeholders who are on the ground and powering the industry every day. So if anybody who is working in this space who's listening today has any insights they would like to add to this page, please reach out to me. Let me know. We would definitely welcome your input. So building out this resource library is an ongoing process. We have a few new smaller scope projects in the works that will be coming out soon. These are essentially supplements to the big toolkit, providing an example of successful implementation on the themes that are most important. So engaging diverse stakeholders and strengthening regional networks, creating opportunities for practical education, and work-based learning. So, like for example, the Oregon Solar Energy Industry Association is convening a regional solar workforce development task force, largely based on our Toolkit implementation guide and action plan. And we're currently running a solar internship pilot in cities across the Midwest. And so those interns are wrapping up soon. So we'll have a report out on best practices and lessons learned for scaling and adapting that model, as well as a case study on the city of Philadelphia, exploring the supporting roles that municipal governments can play in these efforts. So there's a lot happening. All right, so like we've seen so far, workforce development initiatives need to be led by the industry and focused at a regional scale. So there's an area of our new site that's completely dedicated to encouraging partnerships between employers and training providers to support implementation of all the concepts that we've just seen. Sector partnerships and strong local and regional networks are really critical for long-term industry stability and growth by better aligning training curriculum and education with realistic workforce needs and supporting more solid training and talent pipelines to improve job placement of trainees and graduates. So strong networks across education and industry also support regional capacity for adaptive management as solar markets expand and evolve with policy and market changes, to make sure that folks who are entering the industry are being trained in the right skills and being connected to the right job opportunities after. So similar to our job board, the Workforce Partner Directory allows individuals who are looking for training and continuing education opportunities to explore solar programs that are offered either in their area or offered online. This is also available for employers to identify and to reach out to local training and workforce partners to start conversations. This directory includes training providers as well as every state-level industry association and other relevant community organizations that are involved in the solar space. This is an example of a trainer page, so it's pretty similar to our job board, so with similar search features. So I'm not going to get too much into this, but you get the idea. And this is our last section. So solar is more than a job, it's a career pathway. And it's a career pathway with relatively low barriers to entry and really great opportunities for advancement. So this last section is mostly for any students or job seekers that are listening, and for any educators, these are opportunities to get into career development with your students. So for entry-level installation jobs, the vast majority of employers do not require any kind of college degree. So in most cases, a high school diploma and maybe some hands-on training, either with an independent trainer or on-the-job training, is enough to get you started and get your foot in the door. A lot of employers tell us that one of the most important traits they look for in new hires is a willingness to learn new skills and maybe some past experience in an adjacent field with relevant transferable skills like roofing or electrical work or construction, things like that. Especially in quickly growing markets, we've found that it's possible and sometimes fairly common to see promotions and wage increases within the first year on a job, sometimes within 6 months. And of course, as you climb the ladder, depending on the type of position that you're hoping to end up with, different accreditations or certificates do become necessary, but as we saw before in the Solar Training and Hiring report, NABCEP and other industry credentials aren't necessarily required for that first entry-level job. They certainly help and they do make you a stronger candidate, but it's not the most important thing. So hopefully a lot of you guys are familiar already with the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, or IREC. This is an accreditation board, and they created a really awesome solar career development tool that we're just quickly going to take a look at. So they have this interactive career pathways map for the industry. It's a really valuable resource for students, but also for businesses and educators to all better understand and better communicate the really diverse array of different opportunities within the industry. So this map illustrates 40 jobs over 4 general categories with over 60 distinct potential routes of advancement for an individual. So most of these start at the level of basic installation down in the bottom right corner. And they progress upward like any field where broader opportunities and higher pay come with experience. So this is available on our website, on our resources page. We have a section for career development resources, and you can click into each point on this grid to display information about that particular job, the experience needed, the relevant skill sets, the typical pay, and different avenues for advancement. So like, for example, this one that I've kind of mapped out here, starting with just a high school diploma, if you put in a few years on the job and maybe earn an industry certification, a basic solar installer can advance within a company or broadly within the industry to become a crew chief or a more advanced PV installer. And from there, this person could chart a path upward with pay increases at each step to become, why did the slide just move?
Sorry, Megan, that was me. Sorry.
That's okay. Can we get back to that?
Yep, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I was saying, like, from there you can chart a path upward, pay increases at each step to become a PV tech or a solar contractor, or maybe a solar instructor or an engineer, depending on your particular skills and interests. So this tool is just demonstrating all the ways that someone can take an entry-level job and turn it into a pretty powerful career. It's also important to keep in mind that these routes and the data behind the map aren't set in stone, but it's reflective of what you can typically plan for. And the industry is evolving quickly, and every solar market is different, but this is a great starting point for exploring possibilities. Okay. So this chart illustrates the same point, that even starting out as a basic installer, you can work your way up in the industry. And one of our trainers that we partner with has a saying that I really like. He tells his students that a career in solar is a great way to do well and do good. So you can make a decent living with a career powered by the sun and do work that makes a difference in the world. Okay, so this resource was developed by A&R Solar, which is an installation firm in the Pacific Northwest. And this is meant to help students and early career job seekers narrow down what kind of solar job might be the best fit, depending on your particular strengths and interests and how you feel about travel and heights and math and multitasking and things like that. So, like, let's say you're good with heights, you love travel, you're a strong multitasker, maybe not really into heavy equipment, you could make a really great project manager. Or if heights aren't your thing, but you love math and blueprints, system design and engineering might be more your scene. So this might be a little small to read on here. I'm just now realizing that. But this is available on our career resources page. And it's just kind of a fun way to communicate the idea that solar is a really expansive and all-encompassing industry. And there's a role out there for anyone who wants to become involved. So we've spent most of this presentation talking about installation, but this slide is just to reiterate that the full picture of what a solar job can look like goes so far beyond installation. And quality installation jobs are so important to the industry, but there's also a great need for electricians and engineers, as well as administrative and management type roles to steer and support quickly growing companies and educators and instructors to provide quality training and so much more. So there are opportunities across the industry for all skills and all interests. There really is a place for everyone to get involved and to fill these roles. So this is our team. The success and the reach of this program would not have been possible without the support from all of our partners. We have a really great lineup of organizations representing industry and education and workforce that were all really central to steering the scope and the focus of programmatic activities. And we are federally funded, and like I said, our funding period is winding down at the end of this year, but through the Solar Foundation team and through our partners and our new platform, this program will live on and support initiatives that strengthen regional networks and support quality training as solar continues to lead American job growth and continues to lead job creation in the energy sector. So that's about it. If you have any questions about what we covered today or want to chat about solar workforce development, feel free to reach out to myself or the Solar Training Network team at either of these emails that are listed here. We love hearing from the solar community, and we love learning about what you guys are doing on the ground. So again, please don't forget to join our network in case you missed it earlier. Our site is americansolarworkforce.org, and all the resources we talked about and tons more are all available there. And this webinar will be posted, like Ken said, on our site sometime next week. So if you found it helpful, please feel free to share this around your networks. And don't forget to connect with us on social media to stay current on solar workforce news and events. So I think that's all I had. I don't know if Ken.
Megan, I've got a couple questions if you're willing to field them.
Sure, so, I might have time for a couple.
Okay, well, the first one's kind of an easy one. Somebody was asking, is there a cost to users of the Solar Career Platform? And I'm guessing they're wondering about students, employers, or schools. Is there a charge for that service?
No, this is completely free.
Fantastic, that's good to know. The second one's a little more interesting, and it's a little bit longer question, so bear with me. This person asks that energy storage and electric vehicles are related technologies that appeal to many of the same customers as solar. And they're wondering, in the future, is it possible that the Solar Foundation might include questions in their surveys about these technologies, such as how many solar installers also do energy storage, or how many solar installers also provide electric vehicle charging equipment?
That's a really interesting question. So that would be a question for the census team. And although I can talk about the report itself, I'm not involved in that research, and I'm not involved in producing that report. That might be a question on the 2018 survey, which is out in the field right now. But if this person wants to reach out to me, I could put them in touch with the team that's in charge of that. So we use the census data. It informs our work, but we're not, like the Solar Training Network team is not involved in creating that work product, if that makes sense.
So we should watch for the results of the 2018 census, and that might answer that question for us.
Yeah, that'll be out in the spring.
Excellent, excellent. And then I had just one other question that somebody sent to me. Just asked if you could tell us a little bit more about the Philadelphia Municipal Government Project. That sounded kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a little different. It was a really interesting, so the city of Philadelphia has the Philadelphia Energy Authority, and they have this really unique model where some folks might be familiar with like the Solarize campaigns. They basically leveraged a Solarize campaign to create demand for residential solar, and at the same time directing funds from that project towards solar training. So it's sort of concurrent, simultaneous objectives where you're creating demand for residential solar and also creating your own workforce. And so they had this program training high school students. It was a program called like Find Your Power, where they took high school students in a summer training course and train them to work with a local installer, so that those students will be qualified to fill solar jobs that are being created. And so we're creating a sort of a toolkit supplement based loosely on that model about the role of municipal governments working at a local scale to act either in the lead role or as like a neutral intermediary in convening diverse stakeholders within their city to kind of push those objectives. And it really demonstrates kind of the co-benefits between environmental and economic objectives for a city. So that'll be coming out in the next 2 weeks or so. So that'll be up on our site very soon.
Oh, another thing to watch for. That sounds like a model that might be of interest to a lot of other communities, see if we could replicate elsewhere. Exciting, exciting. Well, Megan, I think we'll wrap things up here and just say thank you so much for spending the time with us today. We appreciate it. And we'll look
thank you
forward
for the
to
opportunity to.
Yeah, we'll look forward to more great stuff to come from the Solar Foundation.
Yeah, there's a lot coming out. So, well, thank you everyone for taking the time to listen, and please feel free to reach out if you have additional questions.
Thanks much. Bye, folks.